My wonderful guest this evening is Dan Willis, and I love his bio. In a world that has been trapped in a lie, where we are led to believe that we need oil and gasoline for our transportation, dangerously polluting nuclear and coal power plants for our electricity, and that the only way to overcome gravity is through the use of rocket fuel, there exist hidden technologies which remain hidden only through the use of perception management of the masses, which, of course, these lies are able to be perpetuated at a cost to all humanity and our planet. It appears that only through a global conscious awakening of the controlled indoctrination that the human race has been subjected to can we expose these hidden advanced technologies for the benefit of all humanity. There are indications in our past during the times of Atlantis and beyond that a vastly superior technology existed that understood the geometrical structure of matter in time and space and its interface with that of consciousness. Dan Willis worked with IBM's head scientist, Dr. Marcel Vogel, in the 1980s to explore the geometrical interface of consciousness and matter in a laboratory in which the research gave indicators of this science that could lay down the foundation for a science of the future. Dan is also one of the top secret military witnesses that testified in front of major media at the National Press Club in May of 2001 in support of the release and the hidden advanced extraterrestrial derived technologies within the secret government unacknowledged black projects. Since the controlled mainstream media sanitized the information so as to not alert the public, and the Bush administration denied the requested congressional hearing, which was backed by over 450 military and intelligence witnesses, an effort was initiated to meet with scientists around the world to bring out suppressed technologies. Dan spent over 10 years in this effort and experienced directly the purposeful suppression of these advanced technologies firsthand. His website, you have to check out if you haven't looked at it already. It's phenomenal. It's a library of data that you can get lost in there for days, weeks, months, years. It's called the webmatrix.net/disclosure. I encourage you all to take a good look at that, and please welcome Dan to the show this evening. Hello, Dan.
Solaris, what a pleasure to be on your show again.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you on board tonight. It's very exciting. We always have such great conversations here. How have you been?
Snowed in up here, It's kind of an interesting story. We couldn't get out of we have this long driveway, we live off grid on top of a mountain, and the water pump blew, and I didn't have another fuse, and there's no way to get up and down the driveway, so it means no water. And my lumberjack neighbor, he would just happen to be out by the hardware store, and we couldn't get the fuses to me. So, I just for Christmas, I got this little drone, and I was able to fly the drone down to him and hook the fuses on and fly it back. And so now we have water. So, those drones can be useful for some things.
That's so cool. I love it. That's wonderful. Wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that tells everybody right there, get a drone. Yep, no doubt. I didn't realize I could do that. That's kind of neat. Well, congratulations. So tell me what you've been working on besides the stuff going on around your house. What have you been working on? I know you just revised something on your page and your website, right?
Yeah, I wrote that article. A media company in 2014 wanted me to write an article on, being an ex-ABC newsman on a witness on, the matrix of perception that all of us have been indoctrinated, and then why the mainstream media, continually sanitizes any information about, the reality of the extraterrestrials. And, it just doesn't end in 2014. It just keeps on going, So it's kind of like an online notepad, the webmatrix.net. And, just things have been speeding up at light speed. Just happening so quickly. It just feels like right now we're at a fulcrum point or something, that, people are waking up in record numbers. People are becoming aware that, the mainstream media is completely controlled and is controlled by intelligence agencies and is being fabricated and working with the people that want to promote a particular agenda. And that... that's why a lot of people are turning to alternative media, and and so there all this news of fake news, and these junk science and conspiracy theories and all this stuff, and they're doing like approved lists of what websites are approved, CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, so forth and so on, and kind of labeling, sites like, InfoWars and Gaia.com, with, coming out with Corey Goode and whistleblowers and William Tompkins and all that. But, people need to make up their own mind what's real and what's not, and And the only way you can really put it together is the only way when I went to Washington, I actually naively thought it was part of a world-changing event. We had 500 witnesses all together and proof,
Right.
and of course, the Bush administration denied a congressional hearing. I spent over a decade meeting with scientists and inventors around the world, and all the horror stories, national security orders, all these inventions of, over unity devices, anti-gravity, all of these incredible minds getting slapped with these national security orders so they can't release it to the world. So we're having to use, radioactive sources for our electrical power,
Hmm.
make us believe that we need rockets to go into space, to overcome gravity.
Right.
Uh, needing to use oil and all this stuff, the entire planet. As you said in the beginning, a world trapped in a lie.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
haven't needed these dangerous sources of Fukushima's, Gulf oil spills, all the pollution that coal creates. My God, look at the people in China wearing face masks even to walk outside. I mean, it's crazy.
It
It's
is
total.
crazy. It's like we're stuck in a wormhole too, because they have that breakaway. I mean, they have the exotic technologies, the black sciences departments, and I swear to you, I really get that they have the majority of their facilities are off planet at this point in the continuum. I know people can argue that with underground bases, but I'm telling you, I just think that they are trying to utilize this place as something that's just like a wasteland, and that the ones that needed to be off are actually off planet right now. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's just the impression I get the way the world is being treated right now, and how everything that even if people start to pierce that veil or try to go to the next level of going beyond all these false matrices, they try to slap them down, keep them limited.
Well, I'll be the first to admit I don't know all the answers, but the indications, I like to call them indicators, because
Mhm.
to come to an absolute conclusion, anybody that says they've got it all figured out and they've got all the answers, I don't trust them.
Mhm. Right.
But there's definitely a ton of indicators. When I wrote the article, I realized that there's no way you can figure this out unless you put together a chronology. I went back to, the beginning of the 19th, the 20th century rather. And if you look through history, you look at the authenticated secret documents, you look at all the witnesses, you look at all the evidence that kind of builds upon itself to bring us to where we are today. It's it becomes pretty revealing. But unless a glitch happens in an individual's reality, unless something happens, it's like all of a sudden, they see a UFO, for example,
Mhm.
or they happen to see that, all of a sudden, you see the polls of Trump and Hillary, and oh, look, Hillary's way ahead. There's a 98% chance that she's going to win, and all of a sudden you find out, wait a minute, why did they do that? It's
Mhm.
like people start looking at the glitches, and the glitches start to create questions in people's minds, and so then they start to look outside of the approved sources of information, and you start digging, and and there's a lot. It's a world of disinformation out there.
Mhm.
So you really have to use your own logic and reasoning, put together stuff. I like to use as a foundation the basis of all these witnesses, include generals, admirals, astronauts, not all making it up, and the one having collaborating documentation to back up what they're saying. And if you look through history and you see all the collaboration, so it's like, most people are way past ET 101. We know the extraterrestrials are there. We know they have a secret space program. They know they developed anti-gravity. Well, the Nazis had it back in the 30s, and we developed it in the 50s. And a lot of people are at that point of awareness, but still, there's a lot of people who, it's so polished. The psychological warfare that's besieged on this planet
Right.
is so polished that it's easy to get sucked into it and say, oh yeah, oh, those evil Russian hackers, they kept
Mhm.
Hillary from winning, and and this and that, and we've got to control this.
Right. Yeah, that's all it is damage control, and they're putting out fires. And I have to tell everybody too that your website is phenomenal, as I touched on earlier. But the majesticdocuments.com is what I was looking through, and I was reading through all these memos. The one that was burned, the burned memo, for example,
Oh,
Project Enviro. I mean, and all of this was pertaining to MK Ultra Artichoke. Psychological warfare was highlighted several times over, and this was way back.
oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, you go. Yeah, it goes quite a ways back.
Yeah, it's always been a mind game.
There's some points in history where there was some major control elements happening, like 9/11, obviously, the fake terrorist event. I mean, it's like there's so much information that is valid that's out there when you dig into it.
Hmm. Yeah, I was really kind of just floored because it's something I have to really study for hours, and I didn't really study it for a long time. But I was just looking through all these articles, and I was just saying, man, this is so important. This data is so important. That's why I asked you. I said you have to make sure you have this backed up because this is something that we touched on off the break a little bit about this transfer of power over to the UN when it comes down to the internet, and yet nobody's really noticed a huge transition of any kind. However, I'm under the impression that yes, I think we're going to have more and more problems down the road.
Yeah, well, the Byrne memo came out of James Jesus Angleton, who was the Alan Dulles' mole, was wiretapping Marilyn Monroe and everything, and they were burning it, and he happened to snatch it out of the fire. And basically, there's a reason why Kennedy fired Alan Dulles. Alan Dulles was very instrumental in bringing all the Nazis into the CIA, 3,000 of them, working with Reinhard Gehlen, using the Soviet intelligence and little sealed canisters that were hidden in the Bavarian mountains that they used as a trading chip in order to bring this whole Nazi intelligence. And then you have paperclip, of course, with NASA. But, one of the pivotal points is 1963 when they murdered Kennedy. There was that Byrne memo had an assassination directive in it called Project Environment. Mm-hmm. Which basically stated when we can no longer have cooperation with Washington, which Kennedy was trying to splinter the CIA into a million pieces, and reveal the after they killed James Forrestal, who was one of the MJ-12 members that wanted to reveal it to the public. Kennedy was along the same mindset, wanted to reveal it and have a cooperation with the Soviet Union. What happened was Alan Dulles set up this assassination directive, which stated, when you can't have further cooperation, then the precipitation should be wet, which is a intelligence slang for, wet with blood. In other words, it should be assassinated. So that's what they did, and then LBJ reversed. He was going to get us out of the Vietnam War, so we wouldn't have to go there in combat action in 1969, and also get us off the Federal Reserve, the evil thing that got at Christmas when everybody was gone. They signed this 1913 thing that got us into this Federal Reserve thing, going to all these international bankers, and now Obama in Christmas signs this latest called the Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act, and this he kind of rolled in Christmas Eve into the National Defense Authorization Act, which he's already has situations where he's allowed for the indefinite detention for American citizens without a judge or jury, and that is also made completely legal for the government to use propaganda against its own citizens. And so now we have this new act that got signed in on December 27th that basically the bill will criminalize any fake news or propaganda on the web. After the whole Podesta emails, which were very revealing on several different counts, not only implicating, pedophilia operations that were going on, but also talking about the 0 point energy. He was one of the Podesta emails. He's talking to Edgar Mitchell, one of our our witnesses. Bless his heart, he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
The sixth man to walk on the moon, and he's talking about the release of the 0-point energy. The 0-point energy is pulling energy from the vacuum of space, give you all the energy you could ever need. You won't need. You have a little box you can run your house or business off of.
Mm-hmm.
And they also talk about the Vatican's awareness of the extraterrestrial intelligence. You notice the Vatican's been talking more about extraterrestrials lately,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of positioning themselves for some type of disclosure event. So some very this year has been a lot of revealing things coming out from secret space program whistleblowers, such as very credible whistleblower William Tompkins. He's like in the mid 90s.
Right. Yeah, I saw that interview. Very interesting. Yeah.
It collaborates a lot with what Corey Good is saying. Now, I've worked with excuse me, let me get some water.
Okay. I can yap while you're drinking water.
I've been working with Dr. Michael Salla on some of this material that, through the Freedom of Information Act, verifying William Tompkins' background.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very credible. I mean, he actually worked where my father worked for like 20 years at the Naval Air Station in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at the Naval Electronic Engineering Center for about 13 years in San Diego also.
Right.
And one of my coworkers worked at the NORAD facility where they were seeing UFOs coming on the screens ever so often, going right angle turns and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
let me ask.
all
Go
this
ahead.
stuff.
Right. Let me ask you something real quick. I wanted to, not
Sure.
really to change the subject at all, but regarding what's going on with our Navy right now with the U.S., it seems to me that, what is your take coming from that area with the U.S. right now with the aircraft carriers? Pretty much, I guess since World War II, not a single U.S. carrier was deployed, or basically the U.S. Navy has confirmed that they're basically removing everything from the waters and that they're not putting any aircraft carriers out there.
Yeah, there's some very suspicious activity. Obama putting a whole bunch of our military troops along the Russian border,
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing with the aircraft carriers.
Well, what does
And
that tell you, though? Someone like you who's come from the Navy, what does that say to you? Are you concerned about that at all?
yes, I am. It makes us vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's what I was
and then
thinking.
you have all the reports of all these UN marked vehicles, thousands of them across the country. A lot of this came in through the Jade Helm operations.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of very suspicious activity that the average person sitting back watching CNN or CBS or whatever, they won't. You're not privy to any of this information. All this is purposely omitted from the mainstream media news.
Right.
And other people that are kind of observing these things, are starting to take notice. It's like you don't do things like this unless there's a reason for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's called sabotage, sabotaging our country to some degree, which is why I'm glad Obama is going to be leaving soon, because he's been, to me, an abomination of so many kinds. But yeah, it's very concerning. I mean, even if we have subs and other exotic technologies, I still think we're wide open for a lot of different things. And also, you're right about the infiltration. That doesn't even include the terror cells that have been here that are strategically getting activated. And as we touched on off before we went on to the show live, we were talking about this shooter that's recently, he complained that he was hearing quote unquote voices, which of course was an indicator of psychotronic warfare, artificial telepathy, which means he was linked into the communication system of some kind for MK Ultra or a Manchurian program. Now, they're never going to tell you this on mainstream media. Now, they're the propaganda. So if he wants to use that act against anybody, we can go after the mainstream media and say, you guys are liars, okay? And I think this is very, very serious, because what I have seen is a ramping up of technology, including the artificial intelligence array system, which deals with psychotronics and remote influencing of people. I also am under the impression that the drones now are getting wired for psychotronic and electronic jamming. So when they go past your house, they can not only jam your computers and your cell phones, but they can actually go after a person and target the individual, which can be very, very life-threatening, so to speak. So what's your impression of that?
Oh yeah, Boeing even has an advertisement talking about EMP weapon they have on the drones that, poof, and everything goes, fried. So yeah, they could turn the place back into the dark ages if they wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
It's The thing I have faith in is there is good people in our CIA, NSA, the Marine Corps, Navy, all the there's like the white hats and black hats, so to speak. There's people who go along with the cabal, people who have been blackmailed, people who have been they've been paid off well, guaranteed whatever, to go along with it, or threatened whatever. You can see that there's upheavals going on constantly, behind the scenes, but you get a tainted view through the mainstream media of what's actually happening behind the scenes.
Right. There's a war going on. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's true. And, I think they're struggling right now. I think, according to some indications, that the cabal is being somewhat disassembled.
Good. Yeah,
And,
I'm like celebration,
yeah, wouldn't that be a celebration for all of Earth? My God.
Oh, yeah.
What they have done to this planet for so long,
right,
and kept it retarded technologically and spiritually.
That's a universal war crime. Seriously.
Oh, yeah, beyond war crimes. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd like to hold them accountable for what they've done. And, my area is the psychotronics and the covert technologies involving mind control. But I'll tell you point blank, with the exotic technologies that you know about, yes, you're right. They have deliberately sabotaged the evolution of this planet and the illusion over the people on it. So that, to me, is an abomination on so many levels. And also, it's all reverse engineered, which means it's not even their lineage or their legacy. They just stole or acquired the information so they could run with this exotic technology. One thing I wanted to ask you about is that it was, I believe that it was mentioned in the interview that we were discussing Antarctica and the fact that it was used for production of these exotic technology craft. Do you resonate with that?
That what was used for production of the exotic craft?
They were using Antarctica as an area for manufacturing exotic craft technology, reverse engineered UFOs. That's where they were actually manufacturing the craft, from what I understand.
Well, yeah, they have, Boeing, Lockheed, I actually was friends with the president of Lockheed International and sat down with him for the first copy that was ever seen of the 4-hour executive briefing video, that we gave to members of Congress and Pentagon and everything. I was hoping with his CIA connections he might become a witness, but, it didn't happen. But strange sequence of events. We actually had in his mansion, when we did the campaign tour across the United States in the major cities, we actually used his mansion for one of the executive briefings. Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop, they're all involved. Just like William Tompkins was involved, with Douglas aircraft, with these secret space program operations.
Right, but that would be a place where Antarctica would be a place where they would actually manufacture these exotic crafts because no one would be poking their heads over there.
Well, you got to remember, most of the stuff is underground.
Right.
They have a vast network, and
very interesting.
Yeah, and
have you been to Antarctica, Dan? Have you been there?
No, I haven't. I would love to go down and visit it, just like John Kerry and
you're more qualified to go.
and all the rest have gone down to see the frozen. Flash frozen civilization that they discovered down there, according to Corey Good on the whistleblowing.
Wait, you think that's what it is? Because I'm thinking it's something else. But interesting. Okay. So
no, they found like huge, like many square miles of an incredible civilization down there that it looked like it got hit really bad, like buildings were knocked over. They were called preamidites. I think that's how you pronounce it. But they're the beings with, the elongated skulls like you see in Egypt and Peru. And, it's just like, they found these mammoths with vegetation in their stomach. And then my brother actually knows somebody who ate some of the meat from one of those.
Really? Wow, did he mutate?
It preserved, all the plant life, everything is just flash frozen. Like whatever happened really fast. And so they're down there excavating this with, steam things to melt it. So they were doing kind of a cabal Disneyland, I guess, going down there and viewing all this because the Nazis were all over this, believing that Antarctica was actually due to a pole shift and continental separation, that it was part of Atlantis, and that's one of the reasons why they built out a big base down there.
Hmm. That's very interesting. Then, if that's the case, I was under the impression it was more just about exotic technology in a place where they were manufacturing off-world craft, and also where they can actually go from point A to point B, which means, for some reason or another, I was under the impression that that location in Antarctica is actually a good jump point for traversing the network of the multiverse, so to speak.
Yeah, I was researching, my own testimony when I went to Washington to testify was about receiving, classified secret reports that were going to the chief of naval operations of a ship off the coast of Alaska, reporting a extraterrestrial reddish orange glowing craft about 70 feet in diameter shooting up, and the radar operator tracked it going over 7,000 miles per hour right off Alaska. Well, Trip Van Thorne, I think is his name, is an astrophysicist, discovered wormholes. One's above Alaska, and the other one's near Antarctica, where it allows it like a jump point.
There you go.
And obviously they have bases under the ocean.
Hmm.
In fact, the Soviets, they noticed more than half of the UFO sightings are way out at sea. It makes sense that they're not going to be. But we see stuff ever so often. We're seeing more. It's definitely escalating. More people are seeing craft in the skies.
Right. Well, when Admiral Byrd had that big battle, it was these ships were coming out from the water, right? They were coming up from the ocean, correct?
Yeah. That's where most of them come in and out of.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I can only imagine seeing something that, I'm sure they were very large. Seeing that coming up from the ocean is quite impressive, I'm sure. This is what amazes me. We have such an interesting history in the illusion of, yet it's been so censored and airbrushed that nobody really knows what's going on. As you were talking about, everything has been sanitized. And to what degree does everybody have to keep living this boring lie? Oh, Dan, I am so tired of this. I am so burned out on the illusion of liars. I'll tell you, it's wasting our time. It's wasting our energy.
Yeah, and, it's amazing. It's just in your face. We're I was just noticing some of the videos were like taken down, third party, whatever. But when we went, Donna Hare just stood in front of the mic, in front of all the cameras, and said, NASA is airbrushing UFOs out before they release them to the public. And of course, all that was sanitized, and the 57 different species of extraterrestrials that were categorized by 1989, and Carl Wolf visually witnessing, the bases on the other side of the moon, which is, according to whistleblowers, it's not really. You notice that the moon doesn't turn like all the other moons. It always faces Earth, and it's artificial.
Monitoring station. Yeah, he called it something else, but I call it the monitoring station. Yeah. I think he called it I forget what he called it. Command center. That's what it was called.
Yeah, and all the suspicious stuff about the whole moon landing and the astronauts, and the astronauts are told to keep quiet what they experienced up there. That was part of her testimony. And the biggest thing when we went to Washington was to try to release these technologies, because we had the scientists within the Black Projects that were willing, but the Bush administration denied the congressional hearing. CNN and all the news reports, they said, "Oh no, congressional hearings are planned right now." And CBS did a special interview with me. They basically did a cookie cutter of CNN, and everything that I said was cut out, even though I said I'm not doing this interview unless I can say we have the technologies where we can get off of nuclear and oil and all this stuff. It's for over 60 years. They promised up and down, but the producer of the show, she was in tears. She says, "I'm sorry, the higher executives made me cut that out." And then, Daniel Sheehan, who was one of the witnesses that joined me, had a document of 42 listing CIA, NSA operatives that, strictly control this issue from the highest level,
Right.
before, so it doesn't get out and alert the public.
It's just a shame, because it is our what I call our celestial heritage and legacy. And as I've touched on before, we're not from here. None of us are really from here. Our DNA is really we're star people. Bottom line, we're not from here. So for them to deny anybody information is really, it's not even about national security. I think it's just about these cabals wanting to have control and power over everyone else, and they do it through the exotic technologies areas, especially psychological warfare.
Well, what you don't know can hurt you, and it's important. It's important that we're not deceived. It's
Mhm.
important that we're not lied to. It's important, and people need to research the facts for yourself. Don't believe any particular one person, but research it. I mean, I'm sure the people listening on the show most are really clued in.
Mhm.
So but I think the word really needs to get out. People need to be aware that we've been falsely indoctrinated. The
Mhm.
Rockefellers took over in 1946 the education system, and they knew. See, we think maybe in days and weeks and months ahead. These guys think in decades ahead. They knew that generationally after generation being falsely indoctrinated through the absolute control of the press, which they started in 1950 with Operation Mockingbird with Allen Dulles,
Mhm.
and the Rockefellers controlling education in the United States and completely eliminating everything that really happened at the end of World War II. It's kind of like there's a term for it. It's a partial stand-in. I forget what it's called, but it's like when you give you give part of the story and it's true, but you're missing vital pieces of the story that give the full picture of what's going on, so they
Mhm.
can plausible deniability. Yes, we covered that, but it's what the media does all the time, just like CNN when they cover the disclosure event. Yeah, we were
Mhm.
talking about all the stuff. We disclosed all the stuff. Would be completely world changing. But what they did was, oh, is there life on other planets? Some people think there's proof there is. Elaine Tihanna explains, and then it goes on to this whole thing, and it made it sound like we wanted to have a congressional hearing based on the reality of UFOs, which is not going to really get anybody's really attention.
Mhm.
And people think, oh, you're going to waste government money on such things. But no, they're spending over $4 billion a year on using propaganda against the American public that we pay for.
Mhm. Exactly. Well, I think these people should stay behind here, and that we should just go home, off planet, and say, "You guys could live like, primordial subhumans. I want out of here." This is where I'm at, because I do see a breakaway in consciousness, and it's almost like a species war here on the timeline. In other words, the people that have been doing the propaganda and disinformation have done not only a disservice to their own futures and their children's futures, but to everybody's. And I don't believe that everybody should have to suffer at the expense of their ignorance or even the propaganda that they're pulling. So something's got to give here. And I think that with the new administration, to be honest with you, that's going to sever. These people are going to start realizing that their lies are not going to pay off. So we can't be held back anymore. We're too advanced in consciousness. I mean, those of us who understand what's going on, and it just isn't working anymore. We can't deal with it anymore.
The clock is ticking. We
Hmm.
need to expose them, and we
Yep.
need to expose them through everybody. I do believe in a collective mind, and you can see it in operation. You can
Hmm.
see it on social networks. Um,
Yeah.
just looking back at the year 2016 in review, I can highlight a couple of things just quickly that
Sure.
is kind of interesting. In January of 2016, it's kind of interesting. The X Files comes out with this My Struggle, where they actually do a full disclosure of the whole thing about Nazi Germany and the chemtrails and all this stuff. On a regular 13 million viewers saw that, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Hmm.
And then in March, Newt Gingrich said on Fox News that the establishment is scared of Trump because he was not initiated. He is an outsider. He has not gone through the initiation rites of the secret society, which I thought was rather surprising.
Hmm.
Considering when you think about, when John F. Kennedy died, and just prior to his death, he gave the warning of the dangers of secrecy and of secret societies. And it's interesting that the Warren Commission that decided it was a lone gunman was all made up of the highest level 33rd degree Freemasons. LBJ was a 33rd degree Freemason, Allen Dulles 33rd degree, Gerald Ford 33, Earl Warren 33rd degree. All these guys were like it's almost like a military chain of command in these secret societies where they take orders from the highest level, and you don't get any higher than a 33rd degree, which is an honorary degree, which you have to be chosen.
Mm-hmm.
You can do nothing on your own to get there. So, he gave the warning, and then he was murdered by this group. And anyway.
Let me ask you something real quick about that, because you and I both come from Masonic families. But when it came down to the 33 degree and these particular people, were they Nazi Masons? Is there a difference?
Well, it was back in 1776 when the Rothschilds with Adam Weishaupt, they infiltrated the Scottish Rite at Freemasonry, and they created the 33rd degree.
Mm-hmm.
And their whole plan was to have people well armed and killing each other. But the main thing was that they needed to have, back then it was the Gutenberg press or whatever. They needed to have absolute control of the press. And that seems to be the constant theme of this group. They have to control the perception. The only way they can continue is through secrecy, because if the populace of the planet ever finds out what they are doing in the plans, when they were planning, the first thing they did was the French Revolution, and they wrote out this whole plan in order to start this war, which they would benefit and profit from. And the courier going from Frankfurt, Germany to Paris, France, was struck with a bolt of lightning and killed. And the Bavarian police found this plan as oh my God, look at these people. These people are evil. Look what they're planning on doing. And they tried to warn everybody, but unfortunately, everybody didn't really pay that close attention. And so the French Revolution, and then in Washington's cabinet, we have Alexander Hamilton, which was Rothschild's boy to bring in the central bank. And then, the other pivotal year was 1913 with the Federal Reserve, with Wilson allowing that to come into our country. So there was different years where they keep gaining more and more control. 1933, Hitler came into power. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and Warburg, the one that, in part did the Federal Reserve, they were trying to create Nazi death camps and everything into the United States. But everybody knows two-time Congressional Medal winner, Marine Corps General Smedley Butler exposed the plot. Mm-hmm. And kicked those bums out from doing that. So he wrote a book later called War is a Racket, where he says basically, these wars are created making huge amounts of money for these people, but at the expense of the soldiers, and you think about 9/11 and all the soldiers that Afghanistan and Iraq and Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag event, created with the NSA. The 58,000 young guys lost their lives, and several million Vietnamese. So, and there was a lot of profit being made in these wars.
Well, they say that the Germans lost the war, but the Nazis won the war. So that's how they're wording it from World War II. And I kind of believe that obviously that's true to some degree because of all these Nazis that we acquired during, and after, obviously for our space program.
Well, the Nazis brilliantly executed a plan. Yes, so we won the war with Germany. All the Nazis escaped. Hundreds of their submarines were unaccounted for. Hundreds of thousands of Nazis were gone. All paperwork with Allen Dulles and James Jesus Angleton rewrote all the papers. All the major heads. Hitler escaped along with Heinrich Himmler. They went down to Argentina, and they had this plan, which was they knew they were losing the war. they couldn't compete with the industrial might. For every plane they can make, the U.S. can make like 10 planes, So they had this plan. It was brilliant. It totally worked. It was called Krieg, which translates from German to mean worldview warfare. They planned to, with their Nazi sympathizers within the United States, Prescott Bush and, the great-grandfather of George W., and all their contacts, and they had huge amounts of money that they brought over in Operation Eagle Flight in 1946, and they bought like 750 corporations, which many of them could be, common household names that we know today. And so the plan was to, over generations, infiltrate into the mainstream media, the entertainment industry, the education, and so over a period of time, they would completely take over and control the United States with the Fourth Reich. And you know what? It worked. It was brilliant. And we're in it right now.
I agree. But you know what? Even these people, though, the people in the illusion of entertainment, to me, they don't strike me as the Fourth Reich. I mean, these people don't strike me as Illuminati, or I don't know what they are. They just seem like dysfunctional, brainwashed people. I mean, they don't seem like they're very powerful or together. And of course, but they're not the controllers either behind the scenes.
Yeah, the controllers are on a different level, amazing resources and everything, but it does appear that they are desperate right now.
I agree.
There's a desperation going on. You can see it in the actions that Obama's doing, and the Clintons, and it just freaked them out to no end when Hillary thought, all the 50,000 or 30,000, whatever it was, emails that got deleted on her server all got recovered with, thank you, Julian Assange, for WikiLeaks, right. Implicating and exposing all this stuff. You can't fake stuff like that.
Right. Well, there's always a back door if you're really good at that sort of thing. I can't imagine anything being permanently deleted. There's always a recovery. Yeah, but that's very brilliant. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. I mean, they are definitely sweating in their boots. If you ask me, I think they're concerned. Yeah.
So back to our 2016 timeline, and then we have another, the entertainment industry has been heavily infiltrated and manipulating our perception, in June, the next Independence Day came out, the evil aliens.
Right.
They keep wanting to, because they wanted to have this, they had the technology a long time to pull it off, and our witnesses have witnessed the technology that they could pull off a false flag alien invasion to unite the world and everything, and we'll go more into that later. So then, the Gallup poll in September, it shows the people's trust in the mainstream media is just dropping. It's gone down to, in 2015, it was like 32% trust the mainstream media.
That's great. And that was 2 years ago, right? You said?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
And Brzezinski, is part of with David Rockefeller, the Trilateral Commission, is like, he had this fear that because of the alternative media of the internet and shows like yours, Solaris, that there's a global awakening happening, and it's a justified fear. So as of October 1st, the United Nations has taken over control of the internet from ICANN, another major event that happened.
Right.
Then there was the Bilderberg meeting that happened in Germany, and it's kind of notable that they did select Hillary as their choice.
Of course.
And let's see.
When was that meeting? When was that?
Oh, that was, what was the date on that? It was the 2016 meeting, and we know that Hillary attended the June of 1997 Bilderberg meeting. Now, the Bilderberg meetings, started right about the time we lost control, when Eisenhower was trying to gain plausible deniability because he was, all involved with MJ-12 and at Roswell and all that stuff. So he had Nelson Rockefeller reorganize the CIA and MJ-12. Well, in the process of doing that, he got cut out of the loop and he got pissed off. Wanted to invade Area 51, to see what was going on. They have witnesses about that. But what happened in 1954, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, who was a former Nazi SS officer, that'll tell you something, they started these meetings every single year since 1954. They do these meetings where the globalists and the big movers, shakers, media, Google, Facebook, whatever. I'm not sure of Facebook, but, you can see there's definite tie-ins with that. But all these movers and shakers of the world that have influence attend these meetings, and it's all secretive. So, and moving on from that, let's see. You notice it's so obvious to some people that the mainstream media was painting this dark picture on Trump,
Right. Oh, yeah. Complete propaganda. Yeah.
Every way you could, he was coming up with something. And then WikiLeaks then discloses the Clinton emails that prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that the mainstream media is completely scripted and controlled. And it goes into all the different emails that they're collaborating with the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, all the usual suspects of the mainstream media. And then WikiLeaks also dumps, regarding disclosure with John Podesta to Edgar Mitchell, and about the release of the 0-point energy that they've been keeping from us. And just thousands of emails came out of WikiLeaks, and then there was the Wiener Gate, with 650,000 emails that came out and implicating things, and and then you look at around October, the mainstream media was generating all these fake polls that were really obvious, like 98.1% possibility that Clinton is going to win the presidency, over Trump. Obviously, that was not accurate. And then a very interesting document that is probably kind of controversial to some people. In October, Anonymous leaks this document recommending a false flag alien invasion because they knew the numbers in the Clintons wasn't turning out. People weren't really showing up for the Clinton campaign, and so they knew they were going to lose, and so they were trying to figure out a salvage program. And some of the things they list in this Benson Strategy Group Clinton Foundation document is that, let's see, 8% shooting war in neighborhood, 17% in external invading force, a biblical event, 16%, and then 38%, the one that had the most, according to the survey that they did, was attacked by extraterrestrials. And they were going to utilize this technology called fire sign that creates this awe event, holographically in the sky. And the whole idea would be that, this would happen, and then Obama would create, martial law, and that they would take care of the alien inventors, and then, it would be handed over to Hillary or whatever the plan was. Oh, well, it just so happens, you remember the whole thing with the FBI director reopening the federal criminal investigation on Hillary, just before the election?
Right.
And it was a whole thing. Well, according to some inside sources, that was actually a countermeasure to keep them from implementing what the Benson strategy document was implying they were planning on doing. So it's kind of interesting. And then Trump is elected, and then
everyone's flipping out.
And then we have George Soros and the Clintons putting up ads, $1,500 a week. They have bussing all these protesters in and paying them in order to rebel against the selection.
Right.
Let's see. And then November, we have the movie Arrival. I take note of what goes into the movie industry, which was not really an evil movie like Independence Day, but it was more of like a challenge of communication with an ET race, but still putting what it's like to have extraterrestrials visiting the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then in November 13th, Dr. Greer, who I've worked pretty extensively with,
Mm-hmm.
He gives a public presentation regarding a false cosmic flag, and he publicly questions the validity of testimonies based on false memory implanting of witnesses with the psychotronic technologies developed back in the late 50s. That any of these witnesses that are revealing a malevolent species of extraterrestrials have been falsely mind implanted, and then he insists, and he always has, and in 2000 I asked him, I said, Dr. Greer, what about these reptilians? And he said, oh, they're sweet, So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any firsthand knowledge about all my ET experiences have all been positive.
Right.
But there's a lot of witnesses, people that are pretty credible, like Tompkins, that
well,
we
can get into that after the break, because my background is with the synthetic telepathy and the psychotronic driving systems, and I can tell you, I bet he's looked into my work, because I've been exposing that stuff with my labs and psychotronic mind control programs, which create the illusion of experience. But we can get into that later on. We're going to have a break, everybody. You're listening to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am Solaris BlueRaven. My wonderful guest tonight is Dan Willis. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.